The Oklahoma City Thunder just outsmarted the entire NBA, and I want to show you exactly how they did it.
They're the youngest NBA champion in 48 years.
Now, this story begins 6 years ago in July of 2019, when something unusual happened in the NBA. The Toronto Raptors had just been crowned champions, and Golden State's dynasty had come to an abrupt end. But more importantly, NBA free agency had just begun. And this particular offseason, something felt different. It was like a perfect storm, because not only was there more talent up for grabs than ever before, but with Golden State now out of the picture, teams actually believed that they had a chance. The throne was vacant, and everyone could smell blood.
40% of the NBA is a free agent. Wow. 40% of the players.
Everybody in their team is a free agent.
So Brooklyn threw their house at KD and Kyrie. The Clippers moved heaven and earth for Kawhi and Paul George. The Lakers went all in on Anthony Davis. The Rockets took a chance on Russell Westbrook. It was Kemba Walker to the Celtics, Julius Randle to the Knicks, Jimmy Butler to the Heat. It was an absolute frenzy, a league-wide arms race.
One of the wildest off-seasons in league history.
But amongst the chaos, one team sat back and decided not to chase anyone. In fact, while everyone else sped up, one team decided to slow down, to do things differently.
Our vantage point and our view is always going to be to create the most and longest runway for success. Trying to fix things quickly takes a very long time. So we're going to try to avoid making it longer by trying to make it shorter.
That team, of course, was the Oklahoma City Thunder. In 2019, they cashed in their chips and quietly stepped back into the shadows. To many, it looked like they'd given up.
And Oklahoma City got a bunch of draft picks. Congratulations, you'll be awesome in 2034.
But in reality, they were just getting started. Because Oklahoma City had a vision driven not by desperation, but patience, purpose, and discipline. For the next 6 years, pretty much every major network ignored them, dismissed them. But while the big markets dominated the headlines, something even bigger was brewing in Oklahoma City.
A lot of people are learning slowly but surely.
OKC is going to be a lot better than people realize.
I said, that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he's better than people think.
They were making moves, collecting assets that nobody even knew about or cared to take notice of. And 6 years later, they're not just NBA champions. They're on the brink of something even more frightening.
This is not a thing that happens. Teams this young do not get this good.
The league's screwed up.
What's their secret sauce?
This is by a wide margin the youngest team to win the championship.
This is how Oklahoma City outsmarted the entire NBA. Now, I know I said this story begins in 2019, but I lied, I'm sorry. It actually begins in 2008, because before we get into the ins and outs of how OKC actually pulled this whole thing off, we first need to understand why they chose to take a completely different path to begin with. And to do that, we need to go back to where it all began. It's the 3rd of September, 2008, and NBA Commissioner David Stern has just approved one of the most controversial deals in NBA history: the relocation of the Seattle Supersonics to Oklahoma City, a place better known for college football, natural disasters, and national tragedy. Until now, because on this day in 2008, the people of Oklahoma found out they were getting their first ever professional sports team. As a result, the relationship between the city and the team grew unbelievably fast, with a 19-year-old Kevin Durant, a lanky kid named Russell Westbrook, and an unassuming left-handed guard out of Arizona State. Oklahoma City assembled one of the most exciting young cores we'd ever seen. But as quickly as everything came together, it soon began to fall apart, because the Thunder realized they had a major problem on their hands. Well, 2 major problems to be exact. You see, Oklahoma City by NBA standards has a small population. This means the organization generates significantly less revenue than most NBA teams. Now, while the amount of money a team can spend on its players is the same for everyone, it's more of a guideline. It's not a hard limit. Teams can go over the salary cap if they're willing to pay a massive tax bill to the NBA. Big market teams usually are, as they generate more revenue. But in 2013, the Thunder were unwilling to pay the tax required to keep James Harden, and off he went. That said, money wasn't the only issue for OKC. We live in a day and age where social media is king. Stars don't just want to play basketball. They want to grow their image, start businesses, podcasts, media companies. They want endorsements, brand deals, and extra cash. But to do that, you need exposure. You need to be somewhat in the spotlight. And Oklahoma City is far removed from the spotlight. But bigger cities don't just offer more opportunity, they offer access. They offer a superior lifestyle. Events, celebrities, nightlife, beaches, everything NBA players quietly factor in, even if they never say it out loud. Now, whether or not any of this played a role in the departure of Kevin Durant is up for debate. But what's not up for debate is that when he did leave, they struggled to attract any top-tier talent. Even after trading for Paul George in 2017, what looked like a potential championship run lasted merely 2 seasons before he wanted to return home to LA. So the point here is, for the Thunder, reality moving forward was simple. Success could not be bought. It had to be built. And even then, it couldn't just be built blindly. It had to be built with extraordinary attention to detail. They had to create a culture that players genuinely wanted to be a part of, or they had zero chance to compete in this league. So in 2019, when chaos swept through the NBA, as organizations seemed intent on mortgaging their futures to build super teams, and when Paul George did in fact request a trade back to LA, Oklahoma City didn't panic. Instead, they saw an opportunity.
One other thing Woj is reporting right off the computer. Sit down for this. Oklahoma City is trading Paul George to the Clippers to join Kawhi for a record-setting collection of draft choices.
Breaking news on SportsCenter, the NBA stealing all the headlines again. Our man Adrian Wojnarowski reporting Russell Westbrook on his way to Houston. The Thunder agreeing to trade the 8-time All-Star to the Rockets for Chris Paul.
Within 48 hours of each other, Paul George and Russell Westbrook were out the door. These two moves signified the end of a grueling, decade-long championship run. A run filled with stars, disappointment, and ultimately, what-ifs.
Truly the end of an era.
Kevin Durant, Serge Ibaka, James Harden, Reggie Jackson, Paul George, Russell Westbrook, Victor Oladipo.
Are you kidding me?
Skip, how do you get no titles? Not one single NBA championship.
But more importantly, these two moves signified the beginning of something new.
This summer will be the first major step toward rebuilding the Thunder franchise.
The beginning of something which at the time was hard for people to see.
What other GM can get away with this? Trying to sell his fandom on 2026, I got 3 draft picks.
This is where they're back to.
Rona, they had 10 years to do it, and they didn't.
Y'all not about to win for a long time.
But would later be known as the greatest rebuild in NBA history. So heading into the now infamous 2020 NBA season, the Thunder had completely repositioned themselves. As a result of trading both Westbrook and George, Thunder general manager Sam Presti had acquired an astounding 8 first-round draft picks, 4 pick swaps, a 34-year-old Chris Paul, and a 21-year-old rookie named Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. An unusual blend of youth and experience, but somehow against all odds, the Thunder got better that season, finishing with 44 wins, 28 losses, and ironically a Game 7 loss to the Houston Rockets in the first round of the playoffs. Definitely not the ideal start to a rebuild, but there were a few silver linings. The first of which was the emergence of undrafted free agent Lou Dort, a defensive-minded guard who the Thunder had signed the previous summer. A second positive was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander showed clear all-star potential, and he got to learn from one of the greatest point guards of all time, a veteran whose presence not only elevated Shai, but sent his own trade value at 34 years old through the roof. That said, Chris Paul certainly didn't fit OKC's timeline, so he was shipped to Phoenix at the end of the year for a first-round pick and some role players. The Thunder also made 3 other notable changes that offseason. First and foremost, flipping Steven Adams to the Pelicans for a first-round pick. Secondly, taking on Al Horford's massive contract from Philly, which they got a first-round pick for doing so. And thirdly, the Thunder appointed a new head coach, a man who nobody had really ever heard of. Mark Daigneault, a product of the Florida Gators, had earned his stripes as the Thunder's G League coach. Yes, this organization doesn't just develop players, they develop coaches too. However, in 2021, the Thunder looked far more like that of a rebuilding team. It was indeed the worst campaign in franchise history. To add salt to their wounds, the Thunder were drawn 6th in the draft lottery, and although their selection of Josh Giddey would prove to be a valuable asset, it still felt like a missed opportunity. That offseason, the Thunder continued their unorthodox strategy of stockpiling first-round picks. Because remember how Sam Presti took on Al Horford's contract last year? Well, after Horford had briefly revived his value in OKC, Presti flipped him back to Boston for yet another first-round draft pick. With that said, the Thunder weren't getting any better on the court. In fact, they were so bad during season 2022, they literally took the biggest L in NBA history.
Ever in 75 years.
It'll be an NBA record margin of victory for the Grizzlies.
A 73-point loss to the Memphis Grizzlies. And after another season of misery and a franchise record 58 losses, the sentiment surrounding the Thunder's rebuild began to shift. Some fans getting slightly restless with Sam Presti's insistence on stockpiling draft picks. After all, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had serious potential, but he needed someone to go with him. He needed a running mate. And in the 11th hour, when hope was running thin, came probably the most pivotal night in Thunder history.
Good evening, and welcome to the 2022 NBA Draft at Barclays Center.
Well, and now the Thunder, they have been on the clock. Their pick is in. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver is here to let us know who they picked.
With the second pick in the 2022 NBA Draft, the Oklahoma City Thunder select Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga University.
Now, Chet Holmgren, a 7'1" unicorn, was a pretty obvious pick. The Thunder's next pick, however, was far from obvious, yet would prove to be one of the best decisions this organization has ever made.
With the 12th pick in the 2022 NBA Draft, the Oklahoma City Thunder select Jalen Williams from Santa Clara University.
An emotional moment for Jalen Williams and his family. He has wanted to be a professional ball player since he was 6 years old, and that is all culminating in this moment.
Because when Chet Holmgren unfortunately went down with a season-ending injury before he'd even played an NBA game, 21-year-old Jalen Williams hit the ground running.
Oh, J-Dub! Oh, there's a phenomenal pass! Now J-Dub, step back, that three is good!
Suddenly, there was life in Oklahoma City. That same year, Shai took the NBA by storm. I mean, he'd always had superstar potential, but it was this season that he went from being a part of the plan to being the plan.
Baseline shot, Shai puts it in and walks it off in OKC! Gives it to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. His step back three. Oh, he hits! Shai Gilgeous-Alexander!
The Thunder finished 10th in the Western Conference, falling just short of the playoffs. But for the first time in 2 years, they got better. And that was all that mattered, because in 2024, when Chet Holmgren took the floor for the first time, everything changed.
I want to talk about Oklahoma City.
One other Western Conference team I want to touch on with Oklahoma City.
They are playing as well as anybody in the league right now. Offensive, defensive efficiency.
It feels like OKC is on the cusp of something.
They are currently number 2 in the West.
Oklahoma City is the best story in the NBA right now.
Chet Holmgren blew away any reasonable projection.
By all accounts, this team is ahead of schedule.
To have that roster, to have them this young, playing at this level.
In a matter of 1 season, the Oklahoma City Thunder went from a play-in team to the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, the youngest first seed in the history of the association. The NBA was stunned and quick to point out that despite being statistically the best team in the Western Conference, they had no shot at winning a title.
This might be the weakest number 1 seed.
Is Oklahoma City with a championship this year? Probably not. Okay, I don't think that's news to anybody.
And it's because the lack of experience that they have.
Weakest number 1 seed.
Weakest.
Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
But while a lot of comments were flat out ridiculous, some criticism was warranted. The Thunder lacked size, and it showed in their second round matchup with the Mavs.
And the Dallas Mavericks are going to the Western Conference Finals.
So that offseason, Sam Presti made two crucial moves, signing free agent Isaiah Hartenstein to a 3-year, $87 million deal, then flipping Josh Giddey, OKC's biggest defensive liability, for one of the league's top defenders, Alex Caruso. And with rookie Cason Wallace emerging as an elite perimeter defender himself, the Thunder had quietly assembled what could only be described as a defensive juggernaut. By 2025, a rebuild that a couple of years ago looked dead in the water was now way ahead of schedule. They were lighting up NBA teams on a nightly basis. I mean, to put this in perspective, the 2025 Thunder finished with a net rating of 12.7, a statistic that measures a team's point differential per 100 possessions. That ranks second all-time to the 1996 Chicago Bulls. OKC won 84 games this season. Only the 96 Bulls and 2016 Warriors have won more. They recorded 12 30-point wins, the most in NBA history. But here's a stat that will blow your mind. According to the simple rating system, a metric that measures a team's overall strength by combining average point differential and strength of schedule, the Thunder finished with a score of 12.7. That is the single highest score in NBA history. You just witnessed one of the greatest seasons this league has ever seen. But the real achievement here isn't in the numbers or the trophies. It's that the NBA's second smallest market used every possible disadvantage they had, and instead of complaining about it, used it to their advantage. They couldn't convince players to stay, so they created a culture that 29 other NBA teams just couldn't contend with.
I have never seen a more united and unified NBA team.
These guys are uncommon. They're high character.
He's got J-Dub's hat on. Come on.
Go ahead, Mark.
They're idiots. Most of all, they're team first. They embody everything it means to be a team.
How are you just so consistent?
My whole life is consistent.
Every experience, you know, we've been able to bond and get better together, and, you know, that's why we're here right now.
This is March Madness in April, May, and June.
They couldn't lure players to their organization, so they mastered the art of development. They turned an undrafted rookie out of Arizona State into arguably the NBA's best defender. They turned a 6'6" rookie point guard from the Clippers into the most valuable player in the association, and a 21-year-old kid from Santa Clara who was projected to be a late first, if not second-round pick into an All-Star. And while the rest of the NBA tried to claw their way to a championship, OKC stayed the course, stayed patient, and played a different game entirely. Only now is the league finally starting to see it.
Malika, executives all around the NBA are watching these NBA finals as a blueprint of roster building. And what does that mean? That means two-way players. That means players with characteristics of competitiveness, youth.
Unfortunately for the rest of the NBA though, it's already far too late. Because in their desperation, trading away picks, chasing stars, and mortgaging their futures, they handed Oklahoma City the keys to a war chest of draft picks unlike anything we've ever seen. The reigning NBA champions have 15 first-round draft picks over the next 5 years. They have more draft capital than any other franchise in the NBA. That isn't just unheard of. It quite frankly should be impossible, but it happened. And now, the NBA is going to have to live with the monster it created.
The Thunder have taken the NBA by storm. For the first time, the NBA champion resides in Oklahoma City. The storybook season is complete.
Like I said, we was too young. They said Oklahoma should have a team. But guess what? We the champ.